This is the Integrated Projects media breakout, particularly with a focus on construction. So hopefully we have in the audience any of you guys who are writing for the construction press and particularly covering integrated projects, ProjectWise, that kind of thing. Can I have the next slide, please, David? We have quite a good lineup today. It's not just going to be Bentley talking about our innovations in this area. We're also really pleased to welcome and present to you three gentlemen from the industry. I'll introduce them now, and then they'll come up for each of their areas. We have Jim Porter, who is Jim. Do you want to stand up? Oh no, Jim. Jim is a world-renowned expert on construction safety. Used to be the relatively recently retired from DuPont. Was DuPont's chief engineer, and really wrote the book on process safety, I would say. So and a real leading light in terms of construction safety. We also have here from Shaw Group. Larry is the director of he's worked for Shaw Group for 5 years, but Bechtel for 35 years, and been really instrumental in terms of deploying technologies in the power generation industry, going back from the nuclear industry in the early days to today's fossil power plants primarily. And has a lot of expertise in the whole of the nuclear design and power generation design and build projects around the world. But our main master of ceremonies and are the vice president for construction in Bentley is Harry Vitelli. You met him earlier. He'll be interspersing some of the presentations with some of the technology developments. So do you want me to hand over to Jim first of all? Jim, come up and set the scene. Thanks.
No clicker. That's okay. We can just say move them. That's all right. We found it. Good afternoon. That's what happens if you're not careful with projects, okay? Thank you. I'm really happy to be here today. I am, in one sense, representing the owner community. I worked for the DuPont company for 42 years, 9 months, and 18 days. And it was a great career. I enjoyed every minute of it, but one of the things that I learned very quickly while working for a company like DuPont is it has two extremely valuable resources. It's people and it's capital. And if you don't deploy both of them well, then you're not going to be in business very long. DuPont's been in business 212 years, so far, so good. Okay, I wanted to talk just very briefly about how to be sure projects succeed. We wanted to talk a little bit about why projects have problems, but I think the real key here is to understand how you make them succeed, because you can be confident in doing your projects if you do them the right way and you use the right approach and the right systems and the right support. I am going to start where we always start in my history around DuPont. I'm going to touch on safety because, as Anne-Marie said, it is something that's core to the way we think about the way we do things. And I just wanted to mention that special emphasis on safety is really a must if a project's going to really be successful and really deliver optimum returns. And I mention that on the front end because I think, as most of us know, anything that happens that is an unintended incident is always going to create issues and problems for you in terms of a project. So felt leadership's critical. You got to have lofty goals, and from a practical point of view, if you don't have a goal of 0 on projects, then you're going to have a problem over time, and that problem is going to result in project outcomes that are not going to be in your best interest. And I would mention also that one of the things that I have been extremely positive on, and I think we got a shout out on project safety in the last group from Greg, is that Bentley's focused around understanding how the systems that they put in place, particularly in the construction environment, which is a very hazardous environment, can be put in place and then operated in such a way that they greatly increase the overall safety for the workers in the plants or in the projects. Okay, wanted to talk just very quickly about a little bit about my experiences to give you a framework for the rest of the comments I'm going to make. As I said, I've been around about 45 years and have worked on a lot of projects in a lot of places that cost a lot of money. And as a consequence of that, I've learned a lot of lessons, and a lot of them I've had to learn the hard way. And so the beauty of today's world is that there's opportunities to not have to do that. So from an experience point of view, if you use standard work processes and you use them in a disciplined manner, you can get some really pretty good results. But if you really want to get better results, you've got to start to couple them in a way where you have consistent use and begin to put information technology into play so that you can get more overall more robust nature of your project work. Finally, if you integrate the standard work processes with proven best practices, information technology, not only do you get world-class results, but you get predictable results, which in a project management environment can become very critical in terms of your ability to keep the owner side of things working with you and helping you make sure that things come out the way they're supposed to. Now, we all know that projects fail, and just to give you some insight as to what I would consider to be a failure, in fact, if you look at mega projects, anywhere from 60 to 70% of them fail based on this criteria. Cost overruns, cost competitiveness issues, slips in execution schedules. I won't read the chart to you, but I can tell you very quickly that this can be the norm rather than the exception if you're not very careful in terms of how you understand the project on the front end, how you deploy it, and how you manage it. So we don't want these types of things to happen. So what are some of the things we can do to start avoiding having those things? A key is to begin with the end in mind. Very frequently we get started on projects and we get started before the fact so that we're in the process of already engaging organizations to be a part of a project before we've really understood what it is we want. And what we really want is nobody hurt, no incidents. We want to be on budget, on schedule, and we want excellent operability. And as a consequence, if you start in that frame with that frame of mind and you begin to deploy your people and begin to engage the process in such a way that the system support and the information technology is embedded in the way you go at it, you've got a really good beginning, and you're likely to have a much more successful outcome. Now, one of the things I guess I learned as the hard way more than once is that if you really want to deliver a successful project, it's really all about being able to understand the project in a context that allows you to upgrade what you're doing and continue to follow the plans and the processes that you have in place. You know, the world's awash in data. One of the things you have to worry about with data is data in its base case tends to begat an interest in more data. What you want is to gather the data that's necessary to create the information that you have, that you need in order to create the knowledge that's necessary in order to be able to have a successful project. And all of that requires information technology, not just information technology for information technology's sake, but information technology of a type that increases the ability to collaborate across and among all the people that are a part of the business process that you're a part of. And that's critical to be able to do that in such a way that it can be done in an efficient and an effective fashion. A term that comes to mind when you start to talk about knowledge in this kind of a context is you want your business set up or your project set up in such a way that you really only have one source of the truth about what's really going on. So a critical component really starts with being able to have a knowledge management system in place supported by the kind of systems that will help you make sure you only have that one source of truth. One of the other things I discovered as a part of the work that I did over time is that if you work with the notion of life cycle, this is not just about the data necessary to build the plant. It's about the data necessary to run the plant and extending the data that begins in the beginning. You gather it usually, you process it, you put it into place, it gets boxed, and half the time it never makes it to the plant floor. That's a real loss of value. The loss of value shows up in the terms of the net present value of a project. A $100 million project over a period of 20 years worth of operation can create about $20 to $25 million worth of additional MPV if you just use what you've already paid to put in place. And having systems that are available that enable you to move that information to knowledge across the whole cycle of a project becomes very critical. One of the other things I think that we tend to get sort of caught up about, we tend to think about why things fail based on some large, huge type of impact or large item. In all candor, in my experience, it's the little things that ultimately are that undo you in terms of projects. As you can see in this chart here, gaps in your knowledge process or operational discipline tends to create things for you. Misinformed actions or behaviors, changes occur. We all love changes on projects, don't we? Cost, schedule growth, and then ultimately project failure. So the bottom line is the bottom of the chart. If you have the right things in place that enable you to gather the knowledge necessary and to assess it in such a way that the gaps can be closed before you move forward, Imagine what your opportunities are to be able to create a project that's going to be successful, not just because you don't have changes, but because you can stay on track in terms of both your cost and schedule. Now here's a little picture that I used to use a lot in terms of the way that we were looking at our projects. I won't read this to you, but I think if you think about it for just a minute, it sort of has an implication very similar to what happens to us in project management, doesn't it? We all think about it in a less than holistic context, okay? And then we begin to compartmentalize. And then we begin to silo not only the information but the organizational constructs that we use in order to deliver the project. We don't look for a collaborative type of approach to do things. And so these guys are really kind of doing it the hard way. If you just think about that one for a minute, that would be a tough way to put a puzzle together, wouldn't it? Well, projects are a lot like puzzles, aren't they? And we spend a lot of time doing similar sorts of things. And one reason we do it is because of the communications frameworks that we live with on a day-to-day basis. On the left-hand side of this is my experience based on the way my world used to be. And I had to go change the term up there. Every time we have somebody upgrade my slides, they always change the word coopetition to competition. I meant coopetition because we desperately try to cooperate and collaborate. But at the same time, organizations have a tendency to compete with one another because of the nature of the communications frameworks that are available. If you move to an organizational construct where you have IT-based collaboration tools, you can pull everybody together. And that one source of truth becomes the same source of truth for everyone. And now you've got the opportunity to really engage the full organization and create a successful project. We talk a lot about issues here around projects, and I want to make a couple of comments on this in my last slide. It's really not about projects, not from an owner's point of view. It's really about business, because that's how we stay in business. It's how we grow. And the model that you see here about flow of work packages, design, build, start up, and run, becomes a critical component about how it all happens, if it happens in the right sequence and it happens in the most business effective ways. It's all about getting over there to start up and run. It's about making stuff. It's about doing things. It's about creating value for other people down the chain. So the bottom line is it's really about business. And if you really want to look at projects in a broad sense and you want them to be successful, you have to use tools and expertise that today is available that wasn't available a number of years ago. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, Bentley has those. You heard a lot about them in the preceding conversation, and you're going to hear more about them as time goes on. But the value that can be created really is quite huge when you look at the bigger picture through using the right tools and using them the right way. That would be my comments.
So you talk about on-time projects. We asked Jim to go around 10 minutes. 9 minutes, 51 seconds. The man. So the rest of us can go over a little bit. Hang on, right? Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. All right, so I'll take you through some of the, with that context in mind, around information sharing and breaking down silos. That's really what the whole next part of this is about. So I'll take you through some of the, a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the products and technologies that Greg had taken you through. So we really break down our project offerings into 4 areas. There's tools for information modeling, essentially enabling you to model for construction, and this is really our engineering and simulation tools. Then you've got our collaboration server and services. This is really about much more about giving you tools to do well-managed collaboration. And then we've got a whole series of tools, which is where our ConstructSim fits, which is in the construction process services, which kind of goes right back to what Jim was saying before about the whole work packages that go between engineering, construction, and handover. And then, of course, you've seen some of the apps that give you project data, mobility, and security. All right, so we'll present the data sort of in this context and in this framework. On the information modeling for design and simulation, each one of these sessions is being recorded. So my counterpart, Santanu Das, who heads up the design and simulation group, which is where you really find brands, our MicroStation goes and Open Plant and Inroads, et cetera. Those are all happening now across the hall, but you'll be able to get to that through a recording. All right, so we're going to concentrate on the servers and services as well as the process, and then if we have time, we can dive more into the apps and some of the tools and answer any questions. I think the best way maybe to do this session is to maybe take it in bite-sized chunks. If you have questions along the way that you just want to get out, please bring them up. If it looks like that question is going to take a while to answer, we may just hold it to the end, or if we feel like we're going to get to it later, we'll go that way as well. So I hope that's okay from a process perspective. So here are some of the innovations that we'll be chatting about, just so you have the list. It's iModel Composition Server, and explicitly we'll be talking about its role in the workflow along with SmartPlant 3D. Dynamic Rights Management Service. We talked about this a little bit last year. Slightly different context, and I actually have a demo for you today. The whole connection services, so Bentley Connect, we want to chat about that in this context. Larry's going to take us through the whole Trimble Alliance to really get you under what we mean by the virtual and physical worlds, right? I mean, the press release just doesn't do it justice, frankly. There's a lot of really great stuff that we're doing in this workflow that we're going to tell you about. We'll take you through ConstructSim capabilities. We've got some great work that's being done there, not just on the Gorgon project, but also with Seber and Technip. All right, so this gives you the lineup of things that we'll be chatting about. Again, a little more context, but this all happens in context to the owner. So as Jim described, he was giving you a view maybe from a plant and process perspective, but the same principles apply for a large healthcare campus as well. So last year we had the University of California, San Francisco was Be Inspired Award nominee, and we've spent a lot of time with DPR Construction as well over the course of the last couple of years, who was the main general contractor for that facility. And just recently, we had a very nice press release that came out with DPR where they're standardizing on ProjectWise for collaboration across all their large projects. And DPR's business has grown. I mean, if you look them up, pretty phenomenal growth rates. I mean, they've gone from 500 million to 1.5, and now they're approaching, the $2+ billion mark. It's amazing. The majority of their projects are in the U.S., and they've connected well over 2,000 project participants across 80 projects in 13 regions, just over a fairly short period of time. So I just wanted to give you that context. The way DPR does their work, and I went out to visit them, and we spent time with them in their trailer on this site. It was very, very interesting. Their whole business model as a general contractor is to bring together subject matter experts across the country and across the globe, but mainly across the country since the primary work is in the U.S. They bring together subject matter experts independent of where they are, not just geographically, but independent of where they are from an enterprise perspective. So they hire a lot of small firms to do specific work, but they also hire a lot of large firms to do work. So they do a lot of work that goes across company boundaries, which kind of gets to a really interesting problem associated with IT systems and how you share data across different IT systems. But this is their business model, and that's why they went with ProjectWise. So we'll take you through some of how they could use this new technology that we just announced. All right, so first, to get you, why don't we start with the whole area of Bentley Connect, since it's just such a whole new area for us, and I'm willing to answer your questions as we go, but let me set it up a little bit, and we'll take it from there. So I saw a lot of the tweets were pretty enthused about Bentley Connect, and yes, we are following your tweets. So it's seen a lot of that great writing just coming alive here. So first, teams are distributed across organizations, like I just said, like the DPR use case, right? And what's very, very unique about our industry is these are big files. And IT security concerns are paramount, right? Because you're dealing with some of the world's most precious intellectual property. It has to stay confidential to the company as well as to the project. You got different processes and standards across companies, and you're wasting a lot of time looking for and validating information. And the projects are changing. So you have people coming; they're virtual project team members. They come in, they leave. They come in, they leave. They come in, they leave. So again, you need to be able to get information to a team member who may only be with you for a couple of weeks. You just don't have time to set up a whole IT system and get them plugged in through port 80 or something of that nature. All right, and of course you've got to track changes and synchronize data. So given all this, that's really the context and the problems that we're trying to solve with this concept of Bentley Connect, right? So it's really enabling project owners to connect multiple companies together. Now I'm giving you, there are a lot of use cases for Bentley Connect. I'm giving you one very specific one here, because there are actually individual use cases for Bentley Connect, but I'm giving you more of the enterprise use case where you're using ProjectWise And you want to be able to connect data that's living in a well-managed ProjectWise environment with a highly federated project team, right? Individual team members that are living out in different companies that have different IT systems and different policies. So it's really connecting multiple companies with project information and also using some of these Bentley services that we were chatting about. So let me take you through it a little bit. So the idea is across organizational boundaries, and you want to continue to maintain administrative infrastructure and control. This is really important. So through ProjectWise, you'll be able to actually set privileges on what gets synchronized to other team members, when it gets synchronized, how it gets synchronized, right? So you have that control. So again, unlike Dropbox, where it's a truly federated system, everything gets updated, it's constantly updated. This is going to let the project owner, in this case, and the project owner, the person that controls the information, to determine how the information gets federated. Okay, we're going to set this up so you're connecting information between ProjectWise, SharePoint, local file servers, and we won't stop from there, right? It's a very, very horizontal technology, so we can certainly bring in things like Dropbox and other technologies like Documentum as we see fit, but we're going to start, start with these three. And then again, the whole idea is to leverage the announcement that we made last year and the strong partnership we've got with Microsoft on their Azure cloud service, so we can have a hard drive in the sky, so to speak, on top of Windows Azure that every project team's got access to. So multiple gigabytes inside of Windows Azure where we can begin to synchronize data down to disparate departments. All right? So I see a lot of shaking heads. I think you're getting it. I'll take you through one more example and then can certainly open it up for a few questions. So the general idea here is that a general contractor has a ProjectWise system. They've got, and they maintain access rights and access privileges to all the content. And now we're going to give them more administrative tools and then for Bentley Connect. And from there, the architect who has SharePoint can just synchronize in to Bentley Connect, and you can also synchronize in with your P drives out on local file servers, which could be maybe a local architecture firm or a local subcontractor. All right, and as we know, a lot of project data exists on P drives. So the general idea is that everything comes into Bentley Connect, which is living in Azure. It's a hard drive in the sky, but well managed, well synchronized, and then we're going to put services on top of it that enable project data to get intelligently disseminated. Okay? So any questions about this? This is about as far in the detail as I'm going to go, but you're going to see a lot more announcements from us and demonstrations over the course of the next month or two. All right? Okay, good. iModel composition servers, you heard this mentioned numerous times. This is really going to become and is the hub for composing project data for what we're referring to as information mobility. And again, the information mobility sometimes gets to be a bit of an esoteric term, but this really brings it home, right? So you'd be able to take your data, get it into an iModel, and then just like an iModel is now a currency for information distribution, get it onto an iPad, get it inside of a PDF, get it inside of Navigator, get it into MicroStation, get it into information modeling tools, and now even with the Trimble announcement, eventually we're going to have iModels running down onto the Trimble devices. Okay, so again, this concept of an iModel continues to grow as information currency, right? Data rich, graphically rich, highly precise. And the server, iModel composition server, enables you to not just compose, but also transform data that comes in from many sources into a stabilized iModel and go. Okay? I worked at Adobe for years. I ran the PDF business at Adobe for 7 years. It's a very similar strategy to PDF, right? It's create a currency for information exchange and create a series of products around that currency that enables users to do more and more with it. Okay? Now, the general idea of how iModel Composition Server and Bentley Connection Space come together is very interesting. So it's a very logical workflow. So within iModel Composer, so iModel Composer today runs on-premise next door to your ProjectWise information. As Greg said, it's on demand or on schedule or associated with a workflow, triggered against a workflow. But the idea is that when you create an iModel Composition Server, it will sync up to the Bentley Connection Space for that project. And once it hits that Bentley Connection Space for the project, the administrative controls kick in and the information's disseminated. Again, very much like how Dropbox works today. We want to make it that seamless, but again, with the controls and with all the proper project context in place. All right, so this is a very nice workflow. Will we have iModel composition server running inside of a Bentley connection space? Absolutely. We eventually want to take that box that's sitting outside of the connection space and bring it into the connection space, right? And you'll see us do that over time. So that way you can submit a Revit file into the connection space, and we'll, or a MicroStation file into the connection space. We'll create an iModel, and you go from there. Okay, but that's sort of the next phase for us. We wanted to, to bring this out in a fairly logical workflow. Okay, so again, a very powerful concept to connect organizations together in a well-managed way, but again, using the cloud for instant setup and instant on. Okay, the other thing we're announcing is that through the iModel composition server, we're now able to read SmartPlant 3D data. So in the past, of course, we can read PDS data given that it's in a MicroStation format. We have a partnership with a group that does PDMS. And again, just like we say every year, we pay the interoperability tax for our users. We're now able to read SmartPlant 3D data, bring that through iModel composition server to produce an iModel that again can be used downstream. Okay. In fact, I was chatting with a user yesterday who was showing me a SmartPlant 3D. One of our early access users was showing me a SmartPlant 3D model running inside of that Navigator application I showed you a little while ago. All right. So the beauty of it was we didn't have to do anything different to that iPad application. Right. We gave that user an early access to iModel composition and the SmartPlant 3D transformation product. They converted it to an iModel and then just put it right onto Navigator on the device, and and now he's able to read SmartPlant data on his iPad as well as in Navigator and in their MicroStation clients across the rest of the project. Okay, so again, the idea of information mobility now goes to SmartPlant 3D data. Okay, so we've got SmartPlant 3D data living inside of Navigator and ConstructSim. So we're going through the extra efforts to make sure that when we bring SmartPlant 3D data in, which is very data rich, we're able to bring it now into a constructible model, which then can be brought into ConstructSim for doing work packaging. All right, so you can do work packaging at a construction work area level, at a system level, or at a crew level using the SmartPlant 3D data now. Okay, and again, the beauty of this is ConstructSim reads an iModel, and we just needed to map to the database that lives inside of SmartPlant 3D. We transform the database in, and all the graphics come in just by the very fact that we're able to transform the SmartPlant 3D data to iModel. Okay. Any questions about this? Okay. The users we've shown this to, especially in the plant and process world, are very excited. They're very, so ConstructSim's picking up a lot of steam, as you're going to hear in a few minutes, and this really enables users to have the complete interoperability now between engineering and construction when they're using the Intergraph SmartPlant product. All right. And then as I said, we have SmartPlant 3D data running on the devices. Showing a Surface device, not running there just yet, but give us a little time. All right, so that's iModel composition server and SmartPlant 3D. So if there are no questions, I'll continue to move on. So this is Bentley Dynamic Rights Management Service, and we announced this last year. It's getting ready to ship, so we wanted to tell you where we were. We did this service in conjunction with Adobe. Adobe has a product called Lifecycle Server, which is used very, very heavily in the government space, in financial services, and in healthcare. So in places where data needs to be very, very tightly secured, and we're bringing it to the EC market. So we're basically licensing Adobe Lifecycle Server, going to put it into the cloud. It'll sit on top of Azure, and we'll be able to secure data as it's sitting in a ProjectWise system, and I'll take you through what that means in a second. But again, the primary premise here is that the data that lives inside of these projects is some of the highest intellectual property that you'll find. You certainly don't want to get this data getting into the wrong hands, and it's also very time sensitive. So this isn't just about information protection, but it's also about getting the right information down to a user. So if the wrong drawing is in the field, that's a problem. Someone's going to construct a work area against the wrong drawing. So we'll show you how this works. So it's really 3 phases to the product. It's quite simple. When you're in ProjectWise, you'll be able to assign rights using standard ProjectWise access control. So it ties directly into how ProjectWise does its access control rights and how users have set up. There are thousands of projects on it. What it will do is you can set rights to an iModel or a PDF for a broad range of things. I'm just giving you 4. So in other words, when a user opens up a document, is that the right version? All right. So first off, the way it works is very simple. Actually, you open up an iModel, you open up a PDF, and rights are set to it. And what happens is, if the rights are set, the document phones home, or the work package, right? It could be a collection of documents. That it phones home, so it connects, and it says, "Am I the right version? Has there been an update? So do I need a watermark? Are there expiration rules set against this? So maybe this data was only good for 4 days or something of that nature because they knew a change was going to place, or did something go wrong and that document needed to be revoked, or that work package needed to be revoked?" All right, so those are the general use cases that we see for this. Again, all from inside of ProjectWise, you're able to set your digital rights privileges. It's all part of your project now. It's all part of the access control rights. And then you enforce rights, as I said, through iModels, PDF, and also Office documents. This will work on a work package as well. The rights can be enforced on the desktop or mobile devices. It's online or offline, which is the beauty of this, right? Because many of you know, project participants are offline. And of course, it's offering security anytime, any place. David, do we have the demo running? All right, good. Okay, so before you click, let me give you a context on what's going to happen here. All right, so as you can tell, I'm a real sucker for live demos in front of the press, right? So we have 2 documents here. We're just going to use a standard PDF just to make this nice and simple to bring the points home. There are 2 documents. Each has different rights associated with them. Again, why don't you grab the first one? Okay, so we're working off a standard PC back there that just has actually a very poor Wi-Fi connection. Now, hold on, David. So what happened was this PDF came up. Again, this could be an iModel or a work package. The PDF basically went through the internet connection, phoned home back to a server again, which is living in Azure, and said that, wait a minute, this document's been revised. All right, so through ProjectWise, it knew that in this case, the PDF had been revised. Go ahead. He's going to click on go to the revised document, and as simple as that, the user, there you go, great. So the user is able to get the latest document. Okay, so again, no more worrying about do the users have the right documents in the field. Okay, so that's one use case. Okay, do you want to go to the next one? And here we're just using stock Adobe Reader. So we have the software development kit from Adobe. Now, in this case, this is a different one, right? This right, this was an access right where you have to key in a username and a password. Okay, and as long as you have the right username and password, you're able to come in, and then the server went ahead and watermarked the PDF in this case. So as many of you know, there's a lot of industry standards out there about how documents will flow through a project. BS 1192 is one, and in many cases you'll be approved for ready to be issued for construction, ready to be issued for transmittal or something of that nature, and there are all kinds of various work states. In this case, you can just watermark where it is in the approval cycle. So again, the user knows exactly what state the document's in. Okay? Any questions about digital rights management? Okay. I hope this helps bring some of the products into some context for you. That was the demo, and it worked. Okay, the Trimble announcement. So this was very interesting. So we, long story short, we have been working side by side with Trimble for 20 years. And users have been asking us to get together, and we've done a lot of really good work behind the scenes with automated machine control for the civil industry, where we're able to take digital terrain models and get them down to Trimble devices that are sitting inside of tractors for doing, for doing land clearance. But we really wanted to up-level the whole relationships. We actually went out to Colorado. Greg, myself, and a few others. We met with the CEO of Trimble and their the key lieutenants there, and we really did it on the back of a few use cases that our users have been telling us about. And Larry's here actually to explain one of them in a minute. But DPR was another, and we've had 3 or 4 others who have come to us and said, you know, we're using your product and Trimble products together in the field. Can you help us make these things much more seamless? And so this was a very natural evolution of users coming to us and the willingness of the 2 vendors to get together. So let me just take you through some of this, and I'll try. And Larry will definitely get you grounded in a really nice workflow that he is beginning to put together. So really, the concept is that we live in a virtual world with very, very precise engineering data. Trimble lives in the physical world with their data capture and their positioning devices, which are very successful. Okay, and then we said, okay, given that, we really want to come up with some tenets, right? What are the tenets associated with the strategic alliance? So first, it's got to be driven by user requirements. It's got to be driven by precision positioning, right? Because that's where we live, that's where Trimble lives. And we want to set an industry benchmark for workflows that require very fine levels of precision positioning. Data integrity. We want to make sure that we've got the most current and the most updated geolocated data available in the field. Discovery, just making sure that we're able to, through this workflow, that you're able to identify and communicate irregularities that typically exist between the virtual and the construction worlds. Right? Well, the model's supposed to look like this, but wait a minute, the construction site looks like that. And exactly where are the irregularities? And then, of course, communicate through iModels and through how iModels manifest themselves through a work package, and really looking at an iModel as the currency of information exchange between ourselves and Trimble. Any questions about the Trimble stuff so far? Okay. So again, the idea is information mobility with precision. Right, and with precision down to the positioning. We look at a broad range of workflows, engineering simulation workflows, construction planning, operations, risk management, and rehabilitation. That's really where we're strong. Trimble comes in with their data acquisition tools, their construction layout tools, their machine control tools, their as-built laser scanning technologies, and also their image collection technologies as well. So you see there's very, very strong overlap here. And again, we look at work packages as being the currency of information and iModels being the currency of information of exchange between these. Okay. So today for as-built to operations, Trimble's got total station, laser scans, and GPS devices that they can put on sites. And of course, we've got AssetWise and InspectTech for doing very precise inspections on assets like bridges. And for asset performance management, they're able to scan. They've got laser scans and total stations in the field. They're able to pick up high levels of precision about what an on-site, about what the site looks like in a scan. We can bring that data back into ProjectWise or into AssetWise and stream the data down. And you also saw a lot of point cloud and clash detection going on. So that's also how we're going to be able to use the data. And of course, for rehabilitation, they're able to get quite deep into a lot of these rehab sites with laser scanning. And now we're also beginning to work on underground, on surface and underground utility detection as well. So again, a lot of overlap here. But I really would like the expert to take you through this. So Larry's going to come up and take you through a workflow that they're beginning to pilot on a couple of nuclear projects. So Larry?
I'm going to use this to time myself. Actually, I'm not quite the app guy that my granddaughter is. Every time she gets a hold of this thing, I have to send it out for repair or just reset to the factory settings. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I've been in this business a long time, built a lot of power plants, and actually with Shaw, I've been with Shaw for 5 years, and you can get all this information off the internet. Shaw's a very big company. We build a lot of projects, and we're major players in the current nuclear renaissance. This is Larry Lynch in 1977, and believe it or not, for most of the craft, measuring today is the same as when that's not a pencil in my hand, by the way. Measuring today is exactly the same as it was in 1977. Pipe fitters, electricians, iron workers, the people that are building all of these assets that we're talking about have tape measures, plumb bobs, strings. Surveyors come in and pop chalk lines on the floor. They spray it with lacquer. Then they can drop a plumb bob from the ceiling and measure across and figure out exactly where that speaker is supposed to go. What people don't realize is, and I learned the hard way, engineering is easy compared to doing this. Very easy. Because you can just revise whatever you need to revise. The final revision is never final, right? But construction is, how should I say, it's final. Things have to be where they have to be. And what I want to do today is explain to you, how we got from that previous picture, right, to precise 3D models of exactly what we have to build. The BIM models. My first 3D model was in 1983. In 1985, a mentor of mine named John Stahl said, one day, these will be more important to construction and owners than anyone else. In 85, they were only important to engineering because we could extract isometrics, we were able to produce designs that were interference free, we could do rather primitive, but we could do constructability reviews, but we were really focused on engineering. Today, that doesn't appear the way it does up there, that's good. Today, 3D models go through the entire life cycle. On the projects that have a 60-year design life, like the power plants that we're building right now, the solution providers, right, will be working in and on these plants for the next 60 years. I'm sure DuPont has assets that they still use that come from 60 years ago, and they use laser scanning, they go collect data points and so forth. What you're looking at is a 3D model of embedded plates that are going to be in the plant. The drawing that was produced to install these plates, right, believe it or not, provide the craft a dimension to nowhere. They really do. The plates are located by their center point, right? And I always tell people, I defy you to find the center point of this paper with one touch of the pencil. You won't find it. You have to measure across the plate in both directions. Oh, sorry. Too close? Oh, okay. I've been known to talk too loud too, so. Anyway, so that's what the craft have to do to locate this plate. In our 3D model, we have precisely known coordinates, X, Y, Z coordinates of each corner. We know every single point in the room. If you looked in this room and looked around and you had to install that area right there as a plate with tape measures and plumb bobs, you would be there quite a while. Or you would call a surveyor in, right, and he could deduce the information from the 3D model or from drawings and do some calculations and figure out with his instruments where it's supposed to go. Trimble now has technology that the surveyor is very important to get control of the room. In other words, think of it as GPS in this room, precise GPS control in this room. And you would do that just by putting, does this have a laser pointer on it? I believe it does. Is it that? No. Never mind. But the precise control by survey is pretty easy. And let me see. Do we have the instrumentary? That's what I'm looking for. But the devices, this is what I was looking for. The drawings on the left, right, we extract information from the 3D model, and currently it's with human intervention. We have to select which point, because the number of data points in a 3D model is infinite. You only want to communicate with the device on precise points that enable you to place something exactly where it is. So this picture on the wall over here, we would only need 2 points of precision. And the device on the right, this is what really has changed. The device on the right is a robotic measuring device. I don't want to call it a total station. It is a total station, but it's a robotic measuring device. Anyone in this room that would be a pipe fitter or a iron worker or an electrician, not a surveyor, could come into this room, set the device up, right, in a matter of minutes, and then be able to pinpoint, locate anything they needed to in this room from the information that had been extracted from the 3D model. We use ProjectWise to control this information. When you think of it, we have 14,000 embedded plates. We have 22,000 pipe spools. We have hundreds of thousands of feet of cable tray and conduit, and the construction guy here shaking his head. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. And we have thousands of craft that go out with their tape measures and figure out how to put it in with the drawings, the documents down here in the lower left. And those documents, right, are fairly complex. And the positioning of where things go in the plant is even more complex. So a lot of their time is spent just figuring out exactly where does that picture go. So if we can expedite that, we achieve significant success. ProjectWise is needed to control all of this information. If I have a couple of hundred field engineers making thousands upon thousands of extractions and data points going to the field, and they're associated with work packages, and you can get the picture. We need a management system, and ProjectWise is what we're doing. Does this go back? I jumped ahead. Can you go back a slide? I am hitting the red button. Maybe not hard enough. And the transformation on how this happens is with the eye model. Okay, what I wanted to do is paint the picture. I had my slides out of sync here. The way that we capture the information is with the eye model, because the eye model, PDS, PDMS, Plant Space, Smart Plant 3D, Constructor really doesn't care. If you're Aviva, Bentley, Intergraph, the constructor wants a composite model, right, that shows the whole facility in the same light. And having differences in that 3D environment causes a lot of problems for construction. So iModels consolidate that into a single view. Then we can extract that information and produce it to the craft, or give it to the craft in what I call a digestible form. We went through this. The field device, very important, and this is what I wanted. If we go into a room, right, and we install something, we have that precise point. We can then come back and as-built that precise point with a picture, with laser scan, and we have control of our XYZ coordinates. So just think of it as GPS. I know everyone has a GPS in their car. Imagine going to a new town, to a new address location, and without it. You can't imagine that. Engineering has an intuitive knowledge of what's in the 3D model. Everything to construction is a surprise, right? They get IFC drawings, and here's the 3D model, and we've done everything we needed to do. Have a nice day, go use ConstructSim, make your work packages, and so forth. But what this is going to change is what is delivered into the hands of the pipe fitter, the individual pipe fitter or electrician that has to actually locate components. Essentially, this is just a simulation of what happens. We can shoot the points. It's laser guided, and it's robotic. Don't forget, it's totally robotic with control. So I bring it in the room and I set it down here today. Actually, it almost looks like these speakers over here. You set it down there today, and oh, I'm done. But you set it down there today. I'm going over now. You set it. My granddaughter. No, I set my timer, but I didn't watch it. You set it there today, right? And you have put whatever you want in the room. Tomorrow you bring the same instrument inside the building and you set it down here. You perform an activity what's called resectioning, and now the instrument knows that it's here. You'll get the exact same points that you're seeing on the screen. So we can not only as-built, but we're mobile, and if you go up on scaffolding, it doesn't matter. The key is survey has to maintain control. That's the one thing I don't want anyone to misunderstand. Surveyors are still critical. They will be the people that will identify targets that are the benchmarks inside the building. I'm going to go through this very quickly since I'm overrunning. Does this go forward? The laser scanning at the end of the day will be the as-builting, right? We'll have the eye model, the laser scan. We can scan, superimpose the two together. At the same time, you have to remember we have the XYZ coordinates of everything. Actually, what laser scans are millions of XYZ coordinates. They're a point. It's think of this room as being polka dotted at 1 millimeter separation. It's an XYZ. It's a text file that's an XYZ coordinate for each of them, and we will control that level of information in tools like ProjectWise. Point cloud streaming, essentially same thing, right? I've explained that, and with that I'll say goodbye. Any questions? Any questions? Yes. Yeah, yeah.
For the guys on the construction side, what do they expect now from the technology?
Our construction tolerances are the technology is much more sophisticated than what we require. We get down to the 2 millimeter range inside a room like this, which is less than a 1/16 of an inch. But pardon me? No more cold springing to put them on location. That's one thing too, when you look at the workflows, this has tremendous possibility, because what John was just saying is we'll have things in free space. In other words, a pipe, and this dimension won't be on a drawing. A pipe spool will come through the wall, say there's a penetration up there, and we'll have a connect point down to a piece of equipment here. We have a predetermined spool, in other words, an assembly that we plan on inserting right here, and it's supposed to fit, but we can as-built and check to see if this is going to fit before we start trying to put it up. And getting that dimension previously was extremely difficult. You needed a surveyor, and they poured over the drawings, and to figure out where that pipe should be. That data is now captured in 3D design models, and the variance of installed versus design, it happens every day, and this system is able to determine the variance, right? So you can have your plan B, your option, predetermined before you actually start doing the work. Any other questions? No?
When you started using this construction model?
I can't hear you. Pardon me?
When did you started using the 3D model for construction?
Me personally, 1991.
1991.
1991.
And what are the major challenges that you faced while you started implementing this?
Yeah, well, the robotic survey technology is new. Trimble has only had that. The robotic, and what they call their MEP system, they have about 600 on the market. That's fairly new to the industry. The capturing the 3D data points from 3D model, that's fairly old technology. Because you could snap, get the XYZ coordinate, and then type it into the system. The one thing that I didn't express very well is how that information gets from the model into the device. What happens are the points are selected, right? The XYZ coordinates, it's given a unique number. You have the tag so you know what you're installing, and then we port that information via what we call a CSV file. It's essentially an Excel file, and those points by the thousands get ported into the instrument. And but 3D data points have been in 3D models since 3D began back in the early 80s. The utilization of how construction uses it is what is really changing in today's environment. But it's one of these things. The information has always been there, right? This is just this alliance between Trimble and Bentley is accessing the data.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's keep going. Yes. Okay. I'm going to get through some of this so we can get to Sever. Just in context for the technique discussion, performance monitor. There are a lot of challenges associated with these large construction sites. We're choosing just to bring out 3 here to give you some context for everything that's being discussed. Performance monitoring during the construction management is really critical. Sever is going to show you what they're doing and discuss how they're doing performance monitoring. Ensuring crews are productive and safe. Obviously, getting down to the crew level. I'll take you through the Gorgon project and why that's so important. And ensuring accurate information during commissioning and handover. So a lot of what the fellows have already discussed. But these are a lot of the drivers that are really driving much more automation and so many more people now and vendors coming into the market to help construction. And again, the general idea, as Jim had said before, is that the concept of a work package, right, which is really there as a container of information that begins to, and then tools that enable you to begin to break down these silos of data. So you're actually creating your handover and your commissioning work packages while you're doing engineering. Today, it's a complete afterthought, right? So being able to bridge all these key workflows together is a big deal. Using industry standards, you can't just jump into the pool. You can't just jump into the pool and begin to do this. So the Construction Industry Institute has been a really great guiding light on an international basis for best practices, and they've begun to lay out the details of what it means to have a work package and what it means to do change across work packages and business process management across work packages. So these are at a fairly detailed level from the Construction Industry Institute, and we're beginning to, I'll say, bake these standards into our software. So best practices can be found directly within the software. From a ConstructSim perspective, so you'll be hearing more and more about ConstructSim. It really is our tool, our visual tool based on 3D models for doing work package creation, crew planning, construction work planning by crew or by system, analysis of the work, so constraint analysis, who should be where, who should be here. So it's got a lot of intelligence in it associated with construction crew analysis, and also analysis associated with all the materials that are coming on site. And then, of course, model-based and status visualization as well, which you'll see. It's being used on a lot of major projects. We're just taking you through this one here. Really interesting challenge associated with this project, not just its sheer size, but the offshore production of this massive facility, and also being in Australia, causes very high crew labor rates. So I can't tell you exactly how high the labor rates are, but they're probably orders of magnitude higher than most other projects in the world. And they'll have 10,000 workers during peak construction hours. So careful crew planning, crew safety, and careful crew planning are really critical to success of this project. And also they're pre-assembling racks and units in China and Indonesia and shipping them to the site. So the whole idea of status visualization, knowing where your materials are, knowing where your prefabbed materials are, again, are real critical to having a on-time project. They're planning 6.3 million craft hours using ConstructSim. They're doing constraint analysis to understand the crew and the material coordination, and they're also doing all of the reporting for key performance indicators. Here's some of the models. You've seen other models. This is a massive model that was done. This is a constructible model. Behind this are all the details associated with the schedule, the materials, and all the crew planning. And again, Sever is going to take you through how they do it at Technique, but this is just another version. Again, you go from this massive constructible model and you begin to break it down by system. And that's the beauty of this product, ConstructSim, is it can read these large models and then enable you to break it down to the system level. And in fact, in this case, you're able to break it down to the steel decking and to be able to do work packages for steel decking and get things down to the bolt-up assembly, the finishing of assemblies, when erection needs to happen, etc. So it gets down to that level of detail. You know, as Jim had said before, the devil's in the details. All right, it's when the small things go wrong is when areas start to is when projects get into trouble and things start to compile. All right, so it's not just about the big model; it's really about the detailed analysis. So, a couple things about our apps. We'll sort of transition you from the construction pieces into the apps, and also answer questions in lieu here as well. So Bhupinder had taken you through the app strategy. You saw the demos. Hopefully you'll have a chance to go out here and get your hands on some of the apps and some of the devices. Let me see. So there are a couple of things we didn't cover, which were the developer tools that we're coming out with. So, and also let me take you through some of the characteristics of the apps. So there's really 2 points on this. So first of all, when we go to develop the apps, we have certain design criteria that we use for each one. So first off, we want to make sure that we're highlighting and extending our desktop and our server products, right? So all that great engineering information and all the managed information you're getting in ProjectWise and AssetWise is really going to, we'll be able to extend that information out to the field through the apps. The second is provide connections up to Bentley Connect, so we see that as a true synchronization point. Multiple platforms. What we're finding is more and more is that users want their IT organizations have a BYOD strategy, so bring your own device. All right, and we're seeing more and more of this. We're also seeing organizations going back and forth. Well, I really like iOS. Well, wait a minute, Windows RT just came out. To us, you know, we have a core platform technology for mobile devices now. Let the user decide which device they want to run on, because in 6 months from now there'll be another device. All right, so we're really trying to separate the device and the apps and keep the magic happening back on the server. Supporting disconnected use is paramount. All the demos you saw today were all disconnected. So synchronization back to the server and disconnecting is really critical for industry, because mobile infrastructure professionals typically don't have an internet connection. And then, of course, they're all based on our mobile developer tools. Our apps and our whole portfolio of apps are basically making our development tools better. Let me take you through that in a second. Bhupinder took you through the types of apps, the multi-platform. You saw that. We talked about iModel. You saw the Surface stuff. I saw some of you tweeting on the Surface. We're really jazzed about the new interface and the tiles. But what we have been finding is that the thirst for apps in our user base is incredibly high. And for any vendor to maybe sit there and say that we can develop all the apps that any user would need is almost crazy. So there's no way that any one vendor can create all the apps that a user would need in this industry. So many users will come to us saying, we'd like to either create our own apps or commission apps to be created for us because we have unique workflows. And so, and then of course you get to the devices. So again, for that, we've created, part of our strategy is to enable our users to create their own apps or have their own apps created for them using our development tools. And so we've created a whole set of Bentley mobile development tools. They're available to all of our users and other ISVs through the Bentley Developer Network. They're in 2 flavors. One is a whole set of Bentley Web Services based on the RESTful Web Service standard. Bentley Web Services are available now for ProjectWise, and then we're continuing to expand them for EB, InspecTech, and Ibarra, etc. And then we also have an iModel SDK. So everything that you saw up here that I showed you before with the Navigator, the Structural Synchronizer, and Bentley Map are all based on a mobile iModel. Are all based on an iModel. And so all that technology will be available through an iModel SDK out to our users. All right. So this is a fairly major departure from what you would typically find an ISV doing. We think we're fairly unique in the industry this way, in recognizing the fact that development tools are needed, so users and/or their particular ISVs can create apps for their particular use cases. Okay.